what was going on in Canada seemed bizarre to me. And now what's going on in the Ukraine is bizarre to me. Do you have a way of understanding all these things?
I do, but it'll take a
I'm
little.
listening.
It's a very complex puzzle, and I'm not going to tell you what the puzzle looks like. I'm going to give you the puzzle pieces and let you figure it out. So there's psychological warfare, and it's well known that if you induce a chronic anxiety or fear state, and you isolate someone from the people they love, and you dehumanize them by putting a face taper on, what's going to happen for the majority of people is they're going to psychologically decompensate. And we can call it mass psychosis. When people psychologically decompensate, they get damaged, they get hurt, they become vulnerable, gullible, and very easy to manipulate. And the whole purpose of this artificially made weapon of, really it's a weapon of fear, I would say, was to create global fear. And then to use that global fear to manipulate the behavior of large numbers of human beings. And I'm going to have to start building, everything I'm saying is verifiable, so I'm going to start building the puzzle for you. In 2010, Bill Gates at a TED lecture, anyone could just Google TED Gates 2010 population control. Bill Gates gave a presentation and said the following. Most people know about this. He said that the biggest threat to the planet is global warming. The biggest cause of global warming is carbon emissions. The biggest source of carbon emissions is human beings. And therefore, we need to reduce the world population by 10 to 15%. That's a billion people, more than. And how we're going to do that is through the use of vaccines. Okay. The same Bill Gates in 2020 said 7 billion people must be vaccinated. It's also on video, it's not me saying. So I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. I don't need an answer. Just why would I take a vaccine for my health that is being financed and advocated for by someone who wants to reduce the world population? Okay. In 2016, Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum gave a very bizarre interview on a French media platform. I have the interview. It's with subtitles. And he said, and I quote, that within 10 years, by 2026, every single human being will be tagged with a digital identifier. What does that mean? I forget about the purpose of it, but how do you get 7 billion people to willingly volunteer to get tagged with a digital identifier? I don't know. No one understood it at the time. Okay, now here's some facts. If you look at the World Economic Forum, which is really, they have schooled most of the world leaders right now. For example, Trudeau, Macron, Ardern, Morrison, and many other world leaders. What was her name? Angela Merkel. Even Bill Gates himself was a graduate of that school. So it's not like they're without influence, the World Economic Forum. And if you look at their agenda and their website, it's right up there. The first two goals of the 2030 agenda, which is now the 2030 UN agenda, is that number one, America will no longer be a superpower. Number two, a few nations will govern the world globally. Verified? Take a look. So my question is, how do you take the world's most powerful economy and military in human history, and in a matter of a few years, remove its superpower status? Well, I have a way. How about this? You shut down the economy and perpetrate the biggest theft of middle-class wealth in history. What do I mean? Well, over 1 million small businesses closed. And the larger corporations picked up their market share and the valuation skyrocketed. Why? Because it was very dangerous to go to the local grocery store, but it was safe to go to Walmart. It was very dangerous to buy a hammer at the local hardware store, but it was safe to go to Home Depot. Number two, you drive up inflation to such a rate and devalue the American dollar that last week Saudi Arabia announced that it's going to shift its reliance on the United States dollar or petrodollars and move towards the digital yuan, which is China's new cryptocurrency. Number three, a national debt of over $30 trillion. But that, okay, we can, we kind of could manage. But what's going to tip the scales is the...
We don't know. We don't know if we'll be able to handle it or not. That's what's interesting.
Well, we're not going to manage, but there's a reason. In 2026, according to congressional data, Medicare will become insolvent. We'll begin to go bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you remember in 2008, the housing crisis, that globalized within a week. What happened in America just went global. And most likely the same thing is going to happen when the Medicare system begins to fall and our markets begin to become unstable. They're saying never let a good crisis go to waste. And so, wait a minute, 2026, one second. Isn't that when Klaus Schwab said, according to his vision, that that will be the year that 7 billion people are tagged with a digital identifier? Okay, now I have to give you two very important patents and one of them, you're going to look at me like I'm nuts, but I challenge you, Drew, to read it and then debate me. Because I've challenged everyone, and no one has dared to come and even disagree with my analysis or interpretation. The only people that have made noise called me a conspiracy theorist, and when I talked to them, I saw that they didn't read the patent. It's a United States patent, which I have the number, which I'll forward to you. Actually, I can do it probably now. That describes what's in these vaccines already. It's 50 pages, very complex nanotechnology engineering. And it describes the following. These vaccines contain, on a nanoscale, a capability to measure biometric data. Heart rate, respiratory rate, and temperature. And more importantly, it has the infrastructure on the nanoscale to transmit that information with your location to a third party. Okay, there's a patent, it describes it. I didn't come up with it. United States patent, published approved August 31st, 2021. Number two, there's another patent. This one I remember by heart. It's owned by Microsoft. It's an international patent. The number is WO 2020 060606. And that patent describes the linkage of biometric data transmission to cryptocurrency. I'll give you the patent also. I know you're smart, and I know you don't believe you verify everything. So I really do, I beg you to please review it.
I want to read it. I'm interested in reading it.
Now, to understand what's really going on, let's take a look at China. The CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, controls the central bank in China. The central bank in China just issued a digital currency, digital yuan. I mentioned it earlier. Then what they did was they made illegal all other cryptos. So now the only way to transact financially in China is to use a government-controlled system. Then what they did, this is happening already, it's in place. They connected the social credit score system that they have to the cryptocurrency system. And so what that means is the following. You don't need a gulag anymore to put a bullet into someone's head. If you don't like or you view them as a threat, all you need to do really is shut off their ability to transact, to buy food for their family. So that's a very useful, efficient control mechanism. What's happened in China is a dry run for what's going to happen globally in the vision of the World Economic Forum. The operative word here is economic, because there's already the foundation being laid for a global cryptocurrency. Now, in 2026, when the Medicare collapses, there's going to be a tremendous amount of financial turbulence. That's going to be used as a catalyst to transition the world economies to a one world global cryptocurrency controlled by a few global powers. And here's the kicker. In order to participate in that global cryptocurrency, you will have to be a transmitter of biometric data. So let me play out a scenario for you. You need to buy bread, you go online, your local store, you order bread, you need to pay for it. So forget about Apple Pay, credit cards, or fiat currency money, paper money. All you need to do is scan your hand on a sensor. Your biometrics are transmitted. Probably a few minutes later, a drone delivers your bread. It's kind of cool. Except, what if I don't want to be a transmitter of biometric data? What if I don't want my location known 24/7? What if I don't want my inner temperament, which we can figure out by measuring biometrics, known to whoever? Well, then I'll be excluded from a system of cryptocurrency transactions. I'm sure there'll be a black market, but that's not the point. What if the government doesn't like me? And I know they don't. You know what they're going to do? They're going to restrict or shut off my ability to do transactions. It's a control mechanism. And let's look, and I have all this evidence, and so it's a puzzle piece that I thought I needed to show you. But let's look at the population control component. In October 2020, FDA had an internal presentation to its scientists. And on slide 16 in that presentation, it wasn't meant to be released, but it got leaked. There's a slide that shows all the side effects that they were expecting with these vaccines. Now, that's 2 months prior to the release of the rollout. So what, the FDA has prophetic powers? And now we have a year of data, a little bit more, 15 months of data. And what does that data show? Both the Eurovigilance database and the VAERS database, that there's 100% correlation with what the prophetic FDA said would happen in terms of side effects to actually what human beings experienced and reported to these systems, both the European system and the American system. So there's a term for that, when you have 100% correlation. It's called premeditated first-degree murder, crimes against humanity, and genocide. And and let's look what these vaccines do. FDA said it was going to do it. Well, there's a percentage of people that die relatively soon after being vaccinated, usually due to blood clot-induced heart attacks or strokes. There's a percentage of people, young adults, young males, get myocarditis. Miscarriage rates have jumped in the first trimester significantly. That's even according to the Department of Defense data that just got released. They said by 300%. And then there is a huge spike of these weird cancers that we used to not see, especially in young adults. There's a spike in autoimmune diseases. There's ovarian and testicular dysfunction. By the way, there was a biodistribution study leaked, a Pfizer study from Japan. And the lie that we were told was when you get the inoculation, it stays at the site of the shot. What that study showed is that it actually goes to every organ system. And the number one organ system that it gathers in is the ovaries. So, and it causes infertility, by the way. That's even according to the FDA's own predictions. So it's actually a very effective tool for population control. Some people die right away. Some people's lifespans will be decreased because of chronic illness, cancer, and autoimmune disease. It causes miscarriages and causes infertility. It's amazing, actually, as a weapon to control the population. Could that be why Bill Gates was so adamant about people taking it?
The CDC states that COVID-19 vaccines are safe, effective, and reduce the risks of COVID-19. Always consult with your personal physician before making any decision about your health.